Hi, my name is Steve, and this is my man cave video. Only in my case, it's the dad cave. We'll talk about that in a minute. Um, I've seen some of the other man cave videos, and guys sort of start out with a little story of their modeling life, which I love hearing those. So I'll throw mine out here. Um, I started modeling, I guess, about the age of 8 or 9. So that would be right after the American Civil War, about that time. Um, well, it was in the 60s. It wasn't the 1860s, but it was the 1960s. And right about now, it seems like the 1860s. But I got my first model as a gift. I remember having it at my grandparents' house, or possibly they gave it to me for Christmas. But it was a Corvette. It was an early vet, or it could have been 58, 59, maybe up to 62 Corvette. I remember the look because I, at the time, thought it was the coolest thing in the world because it looked just like the vet that was used in Route 66, the TV show, which adults watch that show. And here I had in my hand a car from an adult show. Um, but I think I got with it a little paint set, testers, set of basic paints, a brush, and some tube glue. I painted the car silver, and I actually remember as a kid, I even knew then because I painted it from a bottle, silver paint, with a small paintbrush. So naturally, it had thousands of brush marks all over it. And I knew, even as a kid, I knew a real car didn't look like that. So, something was wrong. But despite that, I was just totally proud of that model. I think I put little dots of silver on the dashboard to represent the gauges. And of course, I had a supportive family, so my parents, aunts, and uncles, anybody I showed it to would say, "Oh, it's wonderful." So, it was a cool thing, and I probably slept with that model for a few nights. But that was the beginning, so I fell in love with it then. So after that, I did modeling on and off, all genres. I didn't have any particular favorite. I did cars, planes, monsters, spaceships, whatever caught my fancy at the time. Also, Estes rockets. I think a lot of the modelists out there my age did Estes rockets as a kid. Um, I went into the army in the 70s to Germany. While I was there, kept up the modeling, ordered some kits online, ordered some Estes rockets online. I was stationed at a missile site at a small town in the middle of farmland, so we had plenty of space to launch missiles. And every model I made while I was in Germany, I camoed. Modern day, well, at the time, modern day brown and green camouflage. I did a funny car, camouflaged it. I did a biplane, camouflaged it. I did one or two others that definitely should not have been camouflaged, but that was my theme at the time. None of those models survived or made it back with me, which is a shame. But then I did some modeling off and on, not much, but did life. Got married. We have 4 kids, and we moved up. I grew up on Long Island in New York, but we moved upstate to Dutchess County, which is where I am now. And one year we went to the Dutchess County Fair, which is a very good county fair. And they have a building that had the baking and arts and crafts. I've tried the baking category a few times and have lost horribly all the times, but it's still fun. But I'm looking through the arts and crafts things on display, and the winners have the ribbons next to them. And I see a scale model on the table. I'm like, whoa, they have scale model competition at the fair. And it had a second place ribbon. So I decided, well, let me find the first place model and see how stiff the competition is. And I look around and I can't find it. So I asked one of the attendants there who make sure nobody's touching the exhibits. And I said, could you show me the first place model winner? And she said, well, there wasn't one. The second place one, that was the only entry in scale models. I said, well, it's the only entry, but took second place. how come? And she said, well, they don't just give away first because you're the only one. It still gets judged. So I said, well, this is cool. I'll give it a shot. So for several years, I would enter models at Dutchess County Fair, and I know I'm shooting myself in the foot here. Anybody from Dutchess County who sees this video, you really should enter and get the entries up there. It's going to make me step up my game though. But yeah, check that out. So I entered a few years. I won a few times. One year I lost to a dollhouse. Yeah, it wasn't a huge doll. It was just, a small dollhouse that somehow fit in the scale model category. And I lost to that, and my kids had a field day on me. That was good, but it was still fun. So I haven't done that in a few years, and I think this year I'll throw my X-wing in the fair and just see how that goes. We'll take a look at that later. So how this Dad Cave came to be, and where I am now. Last year for Father's Day, I went away, I think, to visit my mom overnight, and we have a room in the house. Originally on the blueprints of our house, it's the dining room. This is where I'm sitting now. I think we used it as a dining room for 6 months. We've been here 20 years. So it quickly got crowded here. We have 4 bedrooms upstairs, but I have 4 kids. And over the years, we've had many different people live with us. We've had family, friends stay with us for a while. We've had several of my kids' friends who had trouble at the time for one reason or another came to live with us. I had a nephew, stayed with us. He went to college near us with my daughter, so he lived with us for a while. That was a lot of fun. I think we counted up, and there were 9 different people who have lived with us, including my mother-in-law. So this room always had a name. It was Jason's room, it was Matt's room, it was Grandma's room. And all of a sudden there was nobody that needed to live with us. My son and one of my daughters moved to Brooklyn. My second daughter went away to college, and it was just my wife and I and my third daughter. And kind of like an empty nest, to us anyway. So my daughter decided to fix up the spare room, which is the only name we had for it at the time, as my modeling man cave. And I came home from my mother's. They said, go look at your room. I said, what room? So I walked in, and here it was. They did a lot of stuff, pulled a lot of stuff out of the attic. Now I have my own, that's the Dad Cave, to do my models, which is really fantastic. So let's take a look at what I got in here. So this is what I walked into. The newly created Dad Cave. Got my workspace. This desk, I used to build models on this as a kid. So this has been around quite some time. I don't know where it was right before they grabbed it and put it in here. But that was cool to have that desk. I've got 2 workspaces. I got the green mat versus the blue mat. So I like the green color, but I kept mentioning that blue looked pretty cool too. So my daughter got me a blue mat for Christmas. Very nice. And here I'm working on the flying sub, which my other daughter got me as a gift. So I'm going to try and light that because I just acquired a DC power supply and a soldering iron. So it's a good thing I'm practicing on this because that takes a certain kind of skill to get that soldering down just right. I'm starting to get the hang of it. I'm going to try and light this without a stand, without a base. Put a watch battery in it and a magnetic switch, but I don't know where to look for the magnetic switch. Having trouble finding that. The usual supplies. I had a lot of sanding sticks and mini sticks, but then I got the Flory sanding sponges. Watched Phil do some sanding and took some of his tips. So for the first time in my life, I'm starting to get sanding skills down. It only took 50 years, but starting to get them now. I always sanded, put some putty on the model, and then I sanded very carefully, thinking if I sand too much, I might have to put more putty on. Well, that's the whole idea. So now I'm a little braver and sand it the way it should be, and then get finer and finer with the grit until I used a polishing stick, which I've never used before in my life. So finally got the polishing stick, and I was amazed. The paint on this fuselage was flat white, and once I polished it up, it looks like I painted it with gloss white. I was amazed. So now I know how it can be, and that's the way I'll start sanding things from now on. But of course, the polishing stick impressed me so much that it still has a place of honor, and it's staying in its little plastic bag here to remain perfect. Storage cases, great to hide all your junk, keep the room looking clean. More storage. I installed these shelves, just got some wooden slats, stuck them on the wall. Boy, did that help a lot. I used to have everything here in a tackle box, a fishing tackle box. That's what I used for probably 20 years. All my paints and sanding sticks and tools were all crammed in one tackle box. And I would just bust that out anytime I wanted to work on a model. So I could only have a limited amount of stuff. Now I can have just about as much as I want. Had a airbrush in the attic, probably for, that must have been up there 15 years. So I mentioned that we have an airbrush but no compressor. So my daughter went out and got me a compressor. She went on Craigslist, drove a half an hour to meet the guy to buy it. And if you're a father and you have daughters, you know that I was glad she didn't tell me that until it was over. But she did meet in a neutral zone at McDonald's. But she got me this. I think it goes up to 220 pounds, or 220 psi. So I could actually, instead of a drill, I can turn that up and use the airbrush to blow holes into the models. It'll never go up that high. The guy used to drive his nail gun with this. So it went from nail gun duty to spray painting models. This big Tupperware has a Millennium Falcon. The boxes kind of got destroyed up in the attic, so I put it in there for safekeeping. I've been working on the clear Enterprise kit using the Helping Hands magnifying glass, and it was brutal. I finally got one of these visor magnifiers, and it was, pardon the pun, eye-opening. I'm like, wow, is that what all these little windows look like? Unfortunately, I did many of them the hard way before I got these, but if you're going to do fine work like that, this is fantastic. And I got this 7 times magnification. I think it's the highest one. It's good, but you have to get your face very close to what you're working on. So those are my additions, but initially my daughter had gone up in the attic and pulled out some photos from my military time. She framed some of my comics. That's a very cool comic cover. So of course Spider-Man was my favorite. I had to run out as a kid every month and ran to the stationery store, bought my monthly issue of Spider-Man. But then she picked this comic cover. And I said, what did you pick that one for? That is the worst comic book cover I own out of my entire stash. And she said, that's why I put it up there. So then I agreed. I go, yeah, okay, that's a good idea to use that one. I've done a video on YouTube, a kit review of this. One of my daughters bought me this at a flea market. This is a cool model. So you should check that out. It's good to have daughters, isn't it? I think I have my stuff in here from my daughters. So it was a team effort by my daughters and my wife, and they went out to IKEA, got some shelving, went up in the attic, pulled all my knickknacks out from many years of accumulation, Alfred E. Newman, Mark Martin. This is Uncle Floyd. For those of you who don't know Uncle Floyd, he was kind of like the Soupy Sales of the 70s and 80s. Picture I took of Pete Rose in the late 1970s. Some wrestling figures. I tell my kids, they say, what do you want for your birthday? I usually say, yeah, don't spend any more than $5 and make sure whatever you get, it's silly and useless. So that's why I have a lot of this stuff here. Of course, the wrestling figures, Joey Styles, Brian Knobbs from the Nasty Boys. And as long as I'm coming out in the open here and admitting that I'm a pro wrestling fan, how about any of you guys, scale modelers out there who are wrestling fans, why don't you comment on this? Leave a comment and come out in the open. Say you're a wrestling fan and put down who your favorite wrestler is. I know it's a modeling forum, but wrestling attracts all walks of life, all ages, all genders. And I think it'd be interesting to see how many of us scale modelers are actually wrestling fans. So go ahead and post a comment on there. So Mr. T. This is not G.I. Joe. This is a crawling rifleman. Battery operated. Drives my dogs crazy. There is a G.I. Joe down there. That's a whole nother story in itself how I got that, but that'll have to be for a later time. So this was cool. They assembled all this stuff. G.I. Combat. I have comic books all over the place. G.I. Combat Haunted Tank is one of my favorites. And let's move over to these models. So this is a cabinet they also bought at IKEA. And it's a pretty funny story of them trying to assemble it together. And I'll sum it up using the words that my wife used. She said, when you came home that day, you almost had one less daughter. And when they tell the story of assembling this, I can see how it got very contentious. It's a very funny story, but they got it together. And my daughter went up in the attic and pulled all my models out of boxes and storage, which was cool. So let's take a look at what's here. These are two old models that didn't come out right. Helicopter I built many years ago. It's terrible. This jet, which is not too bad, but it's got mistakes. And is missing a wing on the other side. I had these two in my hand over the garbage pail on multiple occasions, but I just couldn't drop them in. So there they sit. This was an experiment. This is a car body that was base coated with flat black. And then, on top of it, hold on. So it's base coated with black. And then on top of the black, see if you can guess what color I sprayed on here. You're wrong. There you go. Pink extreme glitter. Pink. And yet it looks like that. It came out green glitter when it mixed with the black. And the top of the car had no base coat on it. That came out pink. I get a bad light. But where it hit the black, it came out green. I don't know what the deal with that is, but this is going to be a test. Was a test because we're going to spray a Batmobile pink glitter. I know it's sacrilegious, but I'm not a huge Batman fan, so we're going to give that a shot. So let's see how that goes. I do all different themes and genres. I don't have one thing I stick with. Matter of fact, once I build something, if I build a monster, I won't build another one. I'll have to switch to something else. This is a recent number of years ago I built Frankenstein. I did this as a kid, and I just redid this the exact same way I did as a kid, except this time I added some real grass. This is the X-Wing. I'm probably going to enter in the Dutchess County Fair this year. There's the Red Baron that I just recently completed. I'm shooting through glass here, so it's a little weird. In the back is a paddy wagon. That I entered in the Dutchess County Fair and got nothing. And so the following year, you're allowed to enter models twice if you haven't won anything with it. So the following year, the first year I put it in had no decals on it. So I placed nowhere. The second year I put the decals on it, re-entered it, and got first place, which is, I don't know, kind of strange. The judge wrote on the ticket, "Nice decal job." So I guess he really liked those decals. This is the top saucer of the Enterprise D. This is the clear model. Takes a lot of decals. So I'm slowly progressing with that. Quick snap together Mustang. More Enterprise. This is a model I did 30 years ago. And I was doing a Google Hangout with family members. We do our own modeling Google Hangout. And my nephew, who's now in his late 30s, said, "You remember you used to have this model that was like a police dragster?" And I played dumb. I'm like, "No, I don't, what are you talking about?" So he kept trying to describe it. So I pulled it out of the cabinet, and I held it up to the camera, and he flipped out. So he said, "Let me tell you a secret. When I was a kid, I used to sneak into your room when nobody was around, just so I could hold that model in my hands." He said his fingerprints are all over this. So somehow this survived 30 years of moving and storage in the attic, and I just bought another one actually to rebuild it. So we'll see how that goes. This is a plan I did quite some time ago. And lost the kit. Lost all the parts, the rest of the parts, so that's the way it stands forever. A couple old armors. These were like 20, 30 years ago. This is a Nike Hercules missile. This is the missiles I was guarding when I was an MP in Germany. I see a lot of people paint the upper portion white, which is true. Some of them were. But the ones I was guarding were all OD green. I believe the rails, that they were laid down flat in a barn, and they slid them out on rails and then stood them up. I believe the railing, everything was OD green. The saying was, if you stood still too long, you would be painted OD green. But for the model, I figured if I painted the base green, it would be kind of boring, so I just mixed it up. I made the missile all green. And there's a lower saucer of the Enterprise. And there's the beginnings of the billboard that I now have to put together to have my Beechcraft crashing through a la Mad, 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 Mad World, which is one of my two most favorite movies. A little picture of me. My son drew this. So this would be what I would look like if I was a wrestler. He's not going to like it that I put this on here. Laurel and Hardy. Love them. This, and right next to the cabinet, someday maybe I'll have a spray booth right there. I got a nice view out the window. A lot of people kind of think that all of New York State looks like Manhattan, but that's my view out the window. So I might block that with this paint booth, but I could still look over it. Paint booth would be really cool because right now, well, I'll get into that. The painting's not easy when it's cold out. Of course, I think this will be one of my next builds. I really want to do some Thunderbirds, but they're very expensive. And most of you guys probably know Johnny Quest. My daughter got me these comics, and I was freaking out. This is a Johnny Quest comic. Look at that cover. I'm like, are you kidding me? Johnny Quest. Here's another one. Where are these girls coming from in Johnny Quest? I'm afraid to read these. I don't know what's going to show up in them. That's a good find, though. I just bought this, Introduction to N-Scale Modeling, because I'm going to start reading up. I may want to put a train table right there, right above that stash. Put a piece of plywood out there, and that will be a continuous build because they take forever and there's just so much to do. So that may come maybe about 30 inches by 60 inches right in there. Okay, and well, this was one of my original ideas. I'm in the group build for Stars of the Silver Screen, and one of my other ideas was to do Jason and the Argonauts, to do their ship. I believe it was called the Argos. There's some very expensive model kits online for folks like that, but there's inexpensive ones that would have to be adjusted a little bit. I chickened out of that. I'm not a scratch builder, so I thought about it and then gave up. But any of you guys out there saw this when you were a little kid, and when this bronze statue came to life, oh man, with the skeletons at the end, this was terrifying stuff. A lot of nightmares. But this movie is the reason my son is named Jason. I like it a lot. He does too, because I think he's okay with it because this is his poster. But he doesn't want to take it out of the frame, and he doesn't want to carry it on the train back home when he visits. So I lucked out. I get to keep it for now. That brings us to the stash. Let's start at the top. Lots of cars. And lots of Mustangs. I used to drive a '68 Mustang. So I'm looking for that model, and I don't think anyone's made it. If you guys can find one. I'm talking about a 1968 Mustang Coupe. Not a GT, not a Shelby, not a Fastback. Just a plain ordinary coupe. And as far as I know, it doesn't exist. But that's the one I want to build. This is a new purchase. I just found out recently there is a Hobby Lobby half an hour from us. Somehow I didn't know about it. So I ran over with my 40% off discount and got Ecto 1 for like $13. Got a Godzilla. This is going to be a fun build. That's what I'm looking forward to, the Monsters Coach. This Hellcat I bought at a train show. One of the tables had all this train stuff out, and this old beat up yellow box from Hellcat. And the date on the sprue says 1967. So I just said to the guy, how much for the Hellcat? And he said, I don't know, $4. So I bought it. Checked it out, all the parts are there. Decals are yellowed. So the only way for me to get decals, I thought, was to buy the new kit, which is right there. That was like $11. So I bought the new kit. And I said, well, as long as I have the new kit, I'll just build a new kit. Well, my daughter would hear, she said, no way. She flipped out. She's like, the whole idea, the fun of this is to build the vintage one from 1967. And I was like, all right, I kind of agree. All right. So she talked me into it. So the old one's going to get built, and the new decals will go on it. Now I've got some old stuff. So I got a quickie rocket. My nephew and his sons are going to launch rockets this summer, so I had to get in the game there. This is an old King Tiger from, at least 30 years ago, probably more. But this is another old one, and I paid full retail for this. Let me see if I can get you in on this. Yep, $3.99, which was full retail 35, 40 years ago. That still has the seal on it. I guess someday it'll be fun to open it up and check it out. This German E-boat was bought around the same time. And I can't read the tag on that, but it looks like it says about the same, like about $4. That was another major project, Jupiter 2. That is the Batmobile that's going to be painted pink sparkle, pink glitter. And here is Battlestar Galactica, which is being built by my daughter, but she went back to school, so it's not quite finished. But this is her first model. So in the middle of winter, she tells me, we put a primer on it, and then I asked her what's up with her model. She says she sprayed the base coat on. And I said, all right, I'd like to see that when I get home. I got home from work, and I said, where did you spray the model? Because it was freezing cold outside. She said, I sprayed it outside. So I said, oh, man, that's not good. So I said, where is it? How did it turn out? She goes, I don't know. It's out on the front lawn drying. So I said, it's 20 degrees outside. You can't leave that out in the cold. In any event, it came out perfect. I was amazed. I said, all right, you know what? From now on, I'm going to spray in the cold. So, can't wait for her to finish that. This I got online for $30. It's LS models, Morgan plus 8. It is 1/16 scale, so it's huge. $30. It's used. Inside is kind of dirt in it. I clean it out, but all the parts seem to be there. But then I noticed this, and I can tell you what that is. Some rat was living on this cardboard. Judging from the inside, he never got in, but some rat or mouse was having a cardboard feast. It's probably kept him alive. But I'll take it, because these are on YouTube for $90, $100. YouTube, on eBay, for $90 or $100. So $30 is a good price, even with the mouse damage. This was another one I got online on an auction, $35. I know this is at my hobby shop for $90. I have to apologize. I like to support my hobby shop, but had to jump on this. This was a gift. I lots of sci-fi stuff as gifts. This was another online auction. This is the Cutaway Millennium Falcon. For $30, I got that. This Surfite, little dune buggy and shack, and this alone goes on eBay for $30. And a Jeff Gordon model. Just sent to my brother because he does NASCAR. And the rest of this stuff on here is comic books. It's my comic book stash. And that's about it. But as far as spray painting in the cold, this is what I do. It's freezing cold outside and usually windy. I run out the door here to the front door. I run out to the porch. To the table there. I flip one of those stools upside down. If I'm doing primer, it's gray and the table's gray, so I don't worry about it. If I got colors, I got to put paper towels around it. And that's not easy when it's 15 degrees and the wind's blowing. So I spray it. As soon as I spray it, I run quick back in the front door, run over here onto the floor with paper towels, grab the hair dryer, and heat it up and hope it dries properly. And so far, it's worked out pretty well. So that's my situation here. Thanks for watching. If I could leave you with two last thoughts. One is I've explained to my family that my stash is fun. So if you buy me a kit, it may sit on the shelf for quite a long time. Doesn't mean I don't like it. I still love it. I like seeing it on the shelf. I like picking it up once in a while and looking at it. So the stash, my stash is half the fun of modeling. Just so they know that you don't want somebody giving you a model thinking that's the next one you're going to build. Except the Enterprise D, that's pretty difficult, and that was given to me by my wife. That kind of supersedes all the rules. If your wife gives you a kit, build it. Number one rule. The other thing is support your local hobby shop. I love my local hobby shop. I'll give a shout out to it. It's a hobby town in New Milford, Connecticut. I live in New York, but that's just a hop across the border into Connecticut. And that hobby town is run by Craig. Now I try and support them, and you've heard me. I do all the big three with the 40% discount on the phone. You do Joann Fabrics, Michaels, Hobby Lobby. I shop at Walmart. I shop at dollar stores. I shop online at all the outlets, at auctions, at all the hobby stores online. I do it. I check everywhere for deals. But the local hobby store, that's a gold mine. That's somewhere where you can go and you can meet other modelers inside and chat with them. The guy who runs Hobby Town in Milford, Craig, he's always there. He's building models right next to the cash register and has all his models on display. And while he's building there, you can see something he's building and you say, wow, that looks pretty cool. And he will be happy to tell you what paints he used, how he did it, what techniques he used. You can I ask him, I tell him I'm working on a model, I'd like to achieve this effect. And he'll help out and give ideas how to get there and what paints to use, what tools to use. So, like I say, it's a gold mine. I'll spend an hour, maybe more, every week in there, looking at all the kits, picking up the kits, reading the boxes, looking at train supplies, paints, tools, Estes rockets, the whole 9 yards. And that's there if you need something right away. If you're in the middle of a build and you realize you don't have something, you can hit the hobby store and you've got what you need. And it can be more expensive than items online. I mean, if you include the shipping, usually it's the same price. But you can find deals other places. But I make sure that when I'm in there, whether I went in to buy something or not, I get something. And if I'm going to buy a spray can that's going to cost me $7 no matter where I look for it, that's where I'm going to get it. So hope you guys do the same, because the hobby shops won't be there forever. Just out of the good nature of their hearts. We got to support them. So that's it. Only one more thing for me to tell you, and that's have fun. Can I get a searchlight over here? Yep. I'm a little worried about this guy.